But you can outgrow your own identity. You can wake up one morning and realize you've been loyal to a version of yourself that was built to survive, not to lead, not to create, not to rise. And that version of you, it can't go where you're going. It flinches at pressure. It apologizes for dreaming. It needs validation before it moves. But the life you're called to live, it doesn't wait for the timid. It doesn't open its gates for the hesitant. You don't get to bring old fears into a new future. You don't get to drag dead mindsets into promised land territory. Every breakthrough has a cost, and the price is always the previous you. That's why you feel the friction, that tension in your chest. It's not anxiety. It's the sound of your destiny outgrowing your comfort zone. You know it. You've known it. There's a new season with your name on it, but the entry fee is your old identity. This is where the shedding begins. This is the conversation your excuses didn't want you to hear. No fluff, no hype, just truth, and the decision that rewrites everything. You ready, good? Because this is the last moment the old you gets to breathe. You can feel it, can't you? Something's shifting. The air around you feels tighter. The silence is louder. The comfort that used to cradle you now feels like chains wrapped in velvet. And the voice in your chest, the one you've ignored for too long, it's no longer whispering. It's roaring. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because you're standing at the invisible border between who you've been and who you're called to become. And here's the truth. The old you is not invited into the next season. That version of you, the one that settled, the one that second-guessed, the one that shrank to fit inside other people's expectations. That version was only built for survival. But this next chapter, this requires a version built for dominion. The small thinking, the excuses dressed as reasons, the patterns passed down like heirlooms. They don't belong where you're going. You cannot bring baggage into a place that demands you to run. You cannot bring the language of fear into a territory ruled by vision. You cannot access elevation with the vocabulary of limitation. This is the sacred truth most won't tell you. Growth requires grief. You will have to grieve the parts of you that kept you liked, but never respected. Grieve the routines that gave you comfort, but never gave you power. Grieve the identity you wore like armor, that never truly protected you. And that grief, that letting go. That's the price of freedom. You don't evolve by adding more. You evolve by releasing what no longer aligns. And the longer you delay the shedding, the longer you delay the becoming. Some of you are praying for clarity, but God is waiting for your cutoff. You keep asking for direction, but direction is useless without departure. Departure from what? From the familiar, from the crowd, from the you that negotiated with distractions, the you that betrayed purpose for popularity, the you that sacrificed your potential for peace that wasn't even real. Let me be clear. That version of you was brave. It got you through storms. It carried pain no one saw. It survived situations that should have shattered you. But now you're not called to survive. You're called to lead. And leadership begins with the most brutal war, the war between your comfort and your calling. Because one of them must die. You can't keep playing small and asking for expansion. You can't keep entertaining mediocrity and expect mastery to show up. You can't keep feeding your distractions and wonder why you're starving for purpose. There is no upgrade without uprooting. There is no arrival without abandoning the lesser version of you that wants to stay hidden, silent, polite, digestible, small. You weren't made to be liked. You were made to be light. And light isn't always comfortable. It exposes. It reveals. It disrupts darkness. So if you're waiting for permission to become bold, to become relentless, to become the version of you that can carry the next level, Here it is. You don't need permission. You need precision and a decision, because heaven doesn't move for hesitation. Heaven moves for commitment. If you're still asking, "Am I worthy of this next season?" you're asking the wrong question. The right question is, "Am I willing to let go of everything that made the last season tolerable but unfulfilling?" The truth. Most people don't miss the old life. They miss the old numbness. They miss not having to be disciplined. They miss not having to rise early. They miss not having to say no to people who drain them. They miss the ease of being average, because average doesn't ask anything from you but your attention. But purpose demands everything. Purpose asks for your mornings, your habits, your patterns, your thoughts, your posture, your environment, your silence, your focus, your forgiveness, your fire. And it gives you identity. You don't get identity through affirmation. You get it through alignment, through doing the work you said you'd do when no one is watching, through breaking the cycles you inherited but never agreed to, through confronting the lies that tell you you're not ready. Listen carefully. The old you was built in survival, but survival is no longer your standard. You're not here to survive the day. You're here to command it. You're here to own the hour discipline, the mind master the focus, and walk with the fire of someone who knows they've been assigned to this era. You don't get that fire from the motivation. You get it from transformation, from finally deciding no more waiting, no more watching, no more wondering, no more compromise, just decision. You become unshakable the moment you stop negotiating with your lower self. And that's the moment you graduate. Not when people applaud, not when your bank account changes, not when you get that title, or that house, or that opportunity. You graduate the moment you bury the old you with honor and walk out of the grave wearing identity like armor. You don't break through by becoming more. You break through by becoming real. Because truth has weight. And when you carry truth, your own truth, the world begins to move around you differently. But as long as you keep wearing masks that fit the past, you'll keep attracting people and patterns meant to keep you there. You can't take the next step until you take off what no longer fits. And most people never make it because they love the applause of who they were more than the silence of who they're becoming. They trade their calling for convenience. They marry their excuses and date their purpose on the side. They master the look of ambition, but avoid the pain of discipline. But you're done pretending. You're done borrowing dreams from the past just to keep yourself occupied. You're ready to own the kind of fire that can't be faked. The kind that burns bridges on purpose. The kind that removes options so you finally commit. The kind that doesn't need hype, it runs on resolve. Because the next version of you isn't built in public. It's built in private. In dark mornings, in quiet routines, in the decisions no one applauds, in the habits you protect when no one's watching. This isn't just about hustle. This is about identity integrity. You can't say you want to lead if your habits scream follower. You can't say you want to rise if your daily routine bows to comfort. Your daily choices are carving your future line by line, breath by breath. So ask yourself, would the future version of me trust me right now? Would they be proud of how I wake up, of how I talk to myself, of how I protect my focus, of what I allow into my ears, my eyes, my soul? Because if your current choices can't carry the future you want, they must die here. No more permission slips from the past. No more dragging along dead relationships, outdated narratives, watered-down dreams. The old you was a necessary chapter, but chapters don't finish the book. The book finishes you. It finishes the you who shrinks, the you who second-guesses, the you who keeps asking for signs when your own breath is the sign. Do you understand the sacredness of this moment? You're alive. That means you're chosen. That means you're assigned. That means the future needs you, but not the you wrapped in apology and fear. No, it needs the you who shows up like purpose has a deadline. The you who walks like their dreams are already watching, like their children are already learning, like their legacy is already listening. Because it is. Every hour you waste, someone else is waking up to the version of themselves you're postponing. And the danger isn't that you'll fail. The danger is that you'll succeed at staying the same. You'll build a perfectly average life, with perfectly safe routines, and perfectly dead dreams. But not you. Not anymore. The old you would scroll right now. The old you would say that's inspiring and go back to sleep. The old you would wait for January 1st. The old you would rationalize stagnation as strategy. But the new you knows that discipline is the highest form of love. The new you knows that clarity isn't given. It's earned. That confidence isn't inherited. It's trained. That purpose isn't found. It's forged. And the fire that builds you now is the fire that will protect you later. So protect this moment. Don't let it pass. Don't water it down. Don't reduce it to motivation. Don't cheapen it with comfort. Let it cut. Let it strip. Let it cleanse everything that kept you locked in survival, pretending it was growth. Because this next season requires the kind of version of you that isn't motivated by pain anymore, they're driven by calling. This is the season where you do what your old self wouldn't even try. Where you walk into the room without shrinking. Where you speak without editing your soul. Where you build without waiting for applause. Where you commit without a plan B. And if that version scares you, good. That fear is proof you're headed toward the truth. Because the enemy of your future isn't failure. It's comfort disguised as logic. So decide. Right now, before you leave this screen, before you go back to the world that tries to tame you. Decide what must die so that you can live, and then bury it with honor. Not bitterness, not shame, but with the gratitude that it served you until it stopped serving your purpose. You don't heal by dragging it into your future. You heal by saying, "Thank you for the lessons, but you're not coming with me." Let go. That's the hardest instruction you'll ever receive on this path. Because most of us don't carry pain, we carry identity. And the moment we let go of who we were, we fear there will be nothing left. But that's where you're wrong. Letting go doesn't leave you empty. It leaves you available. Available for truth. Available for destiny. Available for the identity that isn't built on validation, fear, or trauma. But only if you have the courage to unclench your grip on what's already gone. The old you can't come. Because the old you still apologizes for being powerful. Still asks for permission to speak up. Still delays transformation until someone else approves it. But this next season has no room for negotiation. You either move with it, or be moved by what replaces you. You either evolve or dissolve. There is no standing still in a world that turns every second. And if you're waiting for someone to invite you into your next season, that invitation is buried inside your discomfort. The restless nights, the inner tug, the sense that something is off even when things look good on paper. That's not confusion. That's a summons, a call from your future screaming through the cracks of your comfort. A whisper from the higher version of you not saying, "Be more," but saying, "Be you." The real you. The one that wakes up early even when no one's watching. The one that builds in silence. The one that says no, not out of fear, but out of alignment. Because you can't serve purpose and popularity at the same time. You can't please the crowd and obey the calling. And if you try, you'll break. Not from the pressure of growth, but from the weight of your own betrayal. The greatest fatigue you feel is from carrying the mask. So take it off. Rip it off if you must. Stand there with your uncertainty, your imperfections, your dreams that still terrify you. And own it, because no one else can give you the authority to become who you already are. It doesn't come from the job title. It doesn't come from the follower count. It doesn't come from the applause. It comes from a decision, the kind that doesn't ask for permission. The kind of decision that looks fear in the face and says, "You don't run this house anymore." And if that sounds dramatic, good. Because most people live lives too tame for their soul. Most people die never knowing what it's like to be fully expressed. Not because they couldn't, but because they kept dragging the ghost of who they were into every room. Not you, not after today. You know what happens when you stop dragging the past? You start moving at the speed of your future. You start hearing things differently, seeing things differently, feeling the edge sharpen inside you, and it scares people. Because when you shift your identity, you reveal how little they've moved. Some will resist your growth, some will mock it, some will say you've changed, and they'll be right. But don't apologize, because the people who truly love you don't miss the old you. They believe in the new one. They don't hold you to your past, they hold space for your future. And anyone who only loved the version of you that dimmed their own insecurities wasn't love. It was control. So stop waiting to be understood. Start being undeniable, because self-respect will demand that you burn bridges to your old self. And discipline will demand that you show up even when you don't feel it. And clarity. Clarity will only come when you move first. You want to build an unshakable life. Then become an unshakable person. One whose habits don't flinch under pressure. One whose focus isn't swayed by noise. One whose values don't dissolve in the heat of temptation. This next season will not be given. It will be taken. Taken through decision. Taken through discipline. Taken through the courage to say, "That version of me had its time." But it's not the one that gets to cross over. Let that version rest. Thank it for how far it got you, but don't bring it here. Because this next level, it's reserved for the one who's willing to leave behind the version of themselves that almost made it, and finally become the one who does. There's a moment every warrior faces, not when they meet the enemy, but when they meet themselves. It's not the battle outside that defines them. It's the battle within. The decision to stop retreating into habits, into history, into helplessness, and instead draw the sword of identity. Because the war for your future has never been about time or money or opportunity. It's always been about ownership. Do you own your mind? Do you own your voice? Do you own your standard? Or are you still leasing your power to fear? Still renting your self-worth from the opinions of people who aren't even brave enough to chase their own dreams? Understand this. Your next season is not about addition. It's about subtraction. Less noise, less approval-seeking, less compromise. You think you need more knowledge, more credentials, more signs. No, you need less distractions, less self-betrayal, less delay. Because a powerful life is not built on more. It's built on less, but deeper. Fewer words, but everyone aligned. Fewer friends, but everyone real. Fewer moves, but everyone with fire behind it. The old you was busy. The new you is focused. The old you chased validation. The new you moves in silence. The old you negotiated with fear. The new you doesn't even take its calls. You see, this is what they won't teach you in school. The truth that sets you free will first scare you to death. It will shake everything false. It will strip away comfort. It will whisper, "What if they don't accept you anymore?" But you must answer. Then they never really saw me to begin with. Let that be your line in the sand. Because freedom was never cheap. It always demanded the death of something. The death of ego. The death of excuses. The death of who you used to be. And in that death, something sacred is born: authority. The authority to lead your life not with noise but with presence. The authority to walk into any room and never shrink. The authority to say, I am not here to be liked. I'm here to be true. Let them misunderstand you. Let them question your pace, your process, your fire. You're not here for spectators. You're here for impact. And impact doesn't come from being relatable. It comes from being real. So speak your truth, even if your voice shakes. Move forward, even if your legs tremble. Say yes to what scares you, and say no to what used to define you. Because if you only do what's easy, you'll never become who you're called to be. This next season isn't about hustle, it's about alignment. Not movement for the sake of motion, but movement that slices through mediocrity like a blade through fog. You don't need more plans. You need a decision. You don't need more motivation. You need momentum. You don't need more followers. You need to become someone worth following. That happens when your inner world is built on discipline, not dopamine. When your rituals are stronger than your excuses. When your identity is forged, not fabricated. Because in the end, nothing changes until you do. Not the calendar, not your bank account, not your relationships, not your peace. You are the thermostat, not the thermometer. You don't just reflect the temperature, you set it. But only when you stop negotiating with who you used to be. Only when you stop dragging the corpse of your former life into rooms designed for your resurrection. And that's what this moment is. A resurrection of clarity, of calling, of commitment. But resurrection always follows death. So bury the stories, bury the doubts, bury the lie that says you're not ready. Because you don't have to be ready. You just have to be willing. And if you are, then this isn't just the start of a new season. It's the end of your excuses. It's the birth of who you really are. You will never cross into your next level until you confront the voice that keeps you small. And that voice doesn't scream. It whispers. It whispers at the exact moment your courage rises. It whispers right before the breakthrough. It whispers, who do you think you are? It dresses up in logic. It disguises itself as responsibility. It speaks fluently in delay perfectionism and overthinking. But don't you see that voice isn't you? It's a recording. A looping broadcast from a version of yourself that died the moment you decided to grow. You just haven't hit stop yet. You want a new life, but you keep playing old tapes. You want freedom, but you keep rehearsing failure. You want transformation, but you keep carrying the emotional weight of people who never healed themselves. You're not stuck. You're just loyal to an identity that's already expired. You're not confused. You're just afraid to choose. But hear me and let this tattoo itself onto the walls of your mind. Your next season will not negotiate with your fear. Your future does not submit to your comfort. And greatness never waits for permission from the past. If you want to enter this next level, you're going to have to stop asking the old you for advice. Because the old you is too familiar with settling, too addicted to potential, too loyal to validation. And the new you is dangerous. The new you doesn't knock. The new you builds. The new you doesn't fit in. The new you stands out. The new you doesn't beg for the light. The new you becomes it. But to activate that version of yourself, you're going to have to lose some things. Not by accident, on purpose. You're going to have to break up with procrastination. Unfriend your comfort zone. Evict every belief that tells you this is just who I am. Because that phrase is a cage. And your soul was built for wild expansion, not quiet survival. You've been breathing but not living. Existing but not expressing. Drifting but not deciding. And that stops now. Because once you understand this one thing, your power returns. The past only continues when you participate. That means you can walk away, right now, from every pattern that poisons your promise, from every agreement you made in weakness, from every identity you inherited instead of chose. You want to be reborn. Then start with this. Refuse to answer to the name that fear gave you. You're not the lazy one. You're not the always overwhelmed one. You're not the one who never follows through. You're the one who is done with the script. The one who's ready to burn the blueprint of mediocrity. The one who's bold enough to say, I don't care who I used to be, I care who I'm becoming. That's where power lives. Not in pretending to be perfect, but in the violent clarity of choosing, I'm not going back. Not even a little. Not even on a bad day. Not even when no one claps. Because legacy isn't made in the spotlight. It's made in the shadows. When no one is watching. When quitting would be justified. When faith is your only fuel. That's where the old you dies. And the real you begins. So here's the charge. Raise your standard. Raise your voice. Raise your discipline until it crushes your doubt. And then raise your life to meet the level of your decision. Because nothing will move until you do. And the world doesn't respond to what you want. It responds to what you tolerate. So stop tolerating small. Stop negotiating with potential. Start demanding alignment from every room, every relationship, every thought. Because this is not about being liked. This is about being called. And the call doesn't go away just because you're tired. It doesn't expire just because you got distracted. It waits, relentlessly, until you're ready to remember who you are and finally act like it. You weren't born to cope. You were born to command. But command doesn't begin in the world around you. It begins inside in the arena where your habits wrestle your hope. And every morning, like clockwork, you walk into the cage. You either train your thoughts or your thoughts train you. You either move with design or you get moved by distraction. That's why so many people never see their next season. Because they live their lives as a reaction, not a declaration. They wait for momentum. They wait for signs. They wait for motivation. But the future doesn't knock politely. It waits to see who is brave enough to kick the damn door down. And you don't kick it down with hype. You kick it down with habits. You want to be new? Then build new rituals. Protect your time like it's sacred because it is. Speak with intention, not just noise. Move with purpose, not just pressure. Because no one's coming to clean up your mind for you. No one's coming to install discipline for you. No one's coming to fix the parts of you that only you can confront. You keep praying for a sign, but discipline is the sign. Discipline is the decision you make after the feeling is gone. It's the handshake between your vision and your reality. It's brushing your soul off after failure and showing up again, especially when the applause disappears. It's waking up and saying, I'm not going to be ruled by how I feel. I'm going to be ruled by what I've chosen. Do you think Thomas Edison felt inspired every time the light bulb failed? Do you think Lincoln felt ready when the weight of a broken nation crushed his shoulders? Do you think Disney waited until the world approved of his imagination? No. They didn't wait for strength. They built it in the silence of discipline. And now you speak their names because they refuse to speak doubt into themselves. What will people say about you? Will they say you had potential? Or will they say you had proof? Will they remember your excuses or your execution? The answer lives in what you do after this moment ends. Because this isn't just another motivational speech. This is a mirror. And you can keep looking at it from a distance, or you can break it and build something real. A life not dictated by reaction, but creation. A mindset not dependent on approval, but grounded in purpose. An identity not shaped by the past, but forged in the fire of who you're committed to becoming. So write this in your bones. You don't need another breakthrough. You need a standard you'll never back down from. You need to become so unavailable to your old patterns that even your triggers get tired of trying. You need to cut ties with your own delays, with your own loopholes, with the version of you that knew how to want but never learned how to work. Because if you want to taste destiny, you'll have to starve distraction. And that's not easy. That's not sexy. That's not trending. But that's transformation. And no, the old you can't come. Not into this season. Not into this calling. Not into this level of peace, clarity, and purpose. This is where the door closes. This is where the fire gets hotter. This is where you choose repeat the cycle or rewrite your legacy. So what's it going to be? You already know, because somewhere deep inside, beneath the noise, beneath the doubt, beneath every scar, there's a voice that's never stopped calling. And this time, you answer. You can fake alignment for a while. You can dress up the old habits, give them new names, call them growth. But when the pressure rises, and it always does, who you really are comes out. And here's the truth most people never want to face. Your next level has a security system, and the old you doesn't have the password. You don't get in with good intentions. You don't pass with potential. You only enter with proof. Proof of ownership. Proof of identity. Proof that you've outgrown who you used to be. The old you makes promises in the morning and breaks them by lunch. The old you says someday and sleeps in today. The old you waits for courage to feel like comfort. But this next version of you, they move while shaking. They rise while breaking. They choose obedience over ease. And that's where separation happens. Because average waits for strength, but the exceptional move without it. That's why this isn't about motivation anymore. Motivation fades, but identity sticks. You don't need more information. You need more intention. You need to become so certain about who you are that when your old habits show up knocking, you don't just close the door, you remove the hinges. And yes, that's going to cost you, because elevation always demands elimination. You'll lose comfort. You'll lose approval. You'll lose the people who only loved the version of you that kept playing small. But hear me, you will never lose what is meant for the version of you who finally shows up. The real battle isn't outside. It never was. It's between your standards and your excuses, your legacy and your limitations. So what will you protect, the old wounds that kept you validated, or the new identity that keeps you moving? Will you keep repeating the same month over and over and calling it a life? Or will you finally burn the blueprint and build a version of yourself no storm can shake? That's what self-mastery is. It's not a course. It's not a weekend retreat. It's not a checklist. It's the relentless daily confrontation with the part of you that would rather coast than climb. And that climb is steep, it's lonely, it's ugly, but it's the only road that leads to the version of you that can carry the weight of your calling. Do you really think God gave you a dream just to tease you? Do you really think purpose was whispered into your bones just so you could ignore it? No. You were chosen not because you were ready, but because you were willing. And now the only thing standing between who you are and who you must become is what you're still willing to tolerate. So let this be your moment, the moment the old skin sheds, the moment the victim voice dies, the moment you say, I'm not interested in becoming better. I'm committed to becoming unrecognizable. Because the truth is, you don't get a new season with the same story. You don't get to wear the crown without the cross. You don't get to lead if you're still leaking. This world doesn't need more information. It needs more transformation. And that doesn't come from adding more. It comes from subtracting the parts of you that were never meant to survive the next level. So cut them. The excuses, the delays, the when I feel ready. Cut them clean. Because every time you choose delay, you choose decay. But every time you move in faith, you shift the entire atmosphere. And when people ask how you changed, you won't point to a moment. You'll point to a decision. The day you stopped asking for permission, and started owning the next version of yourself like your life depended on it. Because it does. There's a version of you this world hasn't met yet, and the only reason they haven't is because the old you keeps answering the call. The old you that doubts when it should declare, that negotiates with comfort like it ever built empires, that dances with distractions while destiny waits in silence. But what if this time you didn't flinch? What if this time you stood in the fire and let it burn everything that no longer belongs? Because fire isn't your enemy, it's your forge. And discomfort isn't your punishment, it's your proof that you're not where you were, but you're no longer where you belong either. You're in the middle, the void, the place where most turn back, and the rare few become undeniable. This is not about doing more, it's about becoming more decisive, more unshakable, more disciplined in your identity than in your insecurity. Because you don't need another morning routine. You need a mind that no longer seeks permission to be great. The world won't bow to your hopes. It bends to your standards. Your next level doesn't ask who you want to be. It demands you become someone who can carry what's coming and not crumble under the pressure of answered prayers. The truth. Most people aren't afraid of failure. They're terrified of responsibility. Because once you become that person, the one with power, the one who shows up every time, there's no more hiding behind potential. And so they stay in the gray. Not committed, not chaotic, just comfortably unknown. But not you. You've seen too much, felt too much, lost too much, to go back to the version of you that begged for clarity, but feared obedience. There's something wild in you now, something forged in delay and rejection, a fire that doesn't flicker with the winds of doubt. And that fire is sacred. Protect it with your habits, with your circle, with your silence, with the standard that says, I will never again shrink to fit a room I was called to build. You weren't meant to blend in. You were born to break things open, to disrupt the narrative, to leave dust where the old you used to walk, and footprints that echo through the halls of time. But to do that, to truly enter this next season, you must bury who you were, not politely, not with a whisper, with a war cry. This is the ceremony of shedding the sacred violence of rebirth. And when people ask what changed, you won't say it was luck. You won't say it was timing. You'll say, I killed the version of me that kept apologizing for the weight of my calling. And I haven't looked back since. Because legacy isn't built in convenience. It's built in confrontation. Daily, relentlessly, until what you tolerate becomes intolerable. And what you once feared becomes your fuel. So don't just dream about transformation. Decide on it. Stake your life on the new standard. Put everything on the altar of your future. And burn the blueprint of your past. Because the old you, they can't come with you. Not this time, not to this level. Let them go and walk, not in hesitation, but in holy defiance. Because the door is open, but only the new you has the key. And now you stand here, at the edge of everything familiar. Behind you, every excuse you ever made. In front of you, everything you said you wanted. But only one version of you gets to cross that line. Not the version that hesitates. Not the version that pleases the crowd. Not the version that seeks comfort more than calling. Only the version of you that is bold enough to let the old self die and walk forward anyway. Because every new season demands a new level of obedience. Every promise comes wrapped in pressure. And every breakthrough carries the whisper, you won't make it if you stay the same. So this is the decision point. Do you go back to what was manageable or rise to what is miraculous? Because you cannot hold on and rise. You cannot evolve and cling. You cannot become new and still negotiate with who you were. You don't need more time. You need more truth. You are not behind, you are not late. But you are done explaining your hunger to people who were never meant to feed it. So move. Move with conviction. Move with discomfort. Move with zero guarantees and infinite obedience. Because the old you has nothing left to teach you. And the new you is waiting at the altar of your decision. Make it. If this message pulled something out of you, don't let it go. Like the video. Share it with someone who's been stuck in the in-between. And drop a comment below with just these 4 words: I'm stepping in now. Because your next season isn't waiting. And neither should you. This isn't motivation. It's confirmation that you're not just ready. You've already started.